Hey everybody, happy pandemic. It's getting kind of grim out there, but I was gonna do this video and I was gonna make it up on actually do a nice production behind it. Nah, I wouldn't even call it a production because I'm a little too low class for that, but I was gonna just get a bunch of examples of flowers to show you, okay? But I'm not gonna fuck around. I want to get this out there and, just get a good intro and then you could take it or leave it, whatever. Maybe I'll delete it in a month and do a better one, But I don't really care. How you doing, by the way? What are you doing? You working on puzzles? Well, how you spending your time? Watching a little bit too much Netflix, eh? Could be the case. Anyway, I did this because I want to show you, I want to show you how to look at flowers so that when you when you're out there fucking around, you could be walking through a vacant lot, you see something growing out of the damn sidewalk cracks and shit, you could at least look at the flower and see what it is. Okay, it makes the world a lot more exciting. And like I said before, it's too bad that the garden centers and the garden shows and the old ladies and the fucking housewives on Prozac, no offense, kind of took the flower game away, kind of spoiled it for a lot of people that might not otherwise be into it. They might find this shit boring, okay? Because flowers are just biomechanically, they're absolutely fantastic and incredible, fascinating. They are like puzzles. They reveal evolutionary histories and ecologies. And you ever see that thing about the orchid that Darwin found? Chucky Darwin found 150 years ago. He seen this orchid and he figured out that it was pollinated by a moth that he didn't even know existed yet. And then after he died, they found a moth, and and you could just tell that by looking at the structure of the damn orchid. So they're absolutely fascinating, richer world, And also, flowering plants, aka angiosperms, are basically the base of the food chain. If it wasn't for flowering plants, we wouldn't be here, okay? Because you're not eating, what are you eating? You're not eating fucking pine nuts, Maybe if you make some good pesto every once in a while, but you're not eating ferns or conifers, the gymnosperms, So let's start with the flowering plant evolution, okay? The flowering plants kind of came on the scene 125 million years ago. The Jurassic had just ended. The dinosaurs were still kicking about. Mammals were just tiny little rats living in the ground, like Morganocodon and whatnot, okay? There were no dogs. I like fucking with them, though. It's funny. When you got healers, you got to fuck with them a little bit. Just neurotically, just psychologically tease them a little bit. It's okay. He takes it like a champ. He gets mad. Look, he knows I'm talking about him. Anyway, so the mammals were small. There were the fucking tree. Redwoods were around. Monkey puzzle trees were around. The araucarias, the benetales, they look like cycads. They were around, but no flowers yet. So flowers came on 125 million years ago, and the first ones were tiny. They were fucking tiny. You look at like Archaea fructus, okay, that those guys found over there in China. You look at some of the earliest flowers, they were tiny. They were most likely aquatic. They didn't look like hot shit, They weren't nice. I don't know if it'd calm you down if you were feeling like you wanted to hit somebody in the head with a brick, because they were just small. They were diminutive little shits. But, once they did their thing, they had an explosive radiation, just diversified in species. And that's one of the things that always confused Darwin, is how did these goddamn things in a span, it's just, you look at the fossils and, 130, 125 million years ago, there were none. And then all of a sudden, they were just everywhere, kind of like coronavirus. Dark joke. Anyway, so the thing is, they're very successful. All plants you see are angiosperms, flowering plants, almost all of them, except for the conifers. Well, I'm ignoring the ferns too. Forget what I said. The point is they're fucking everywhere, and they're comprised the base of the human food chain. Even if you're eating a goddamn cow, the cow is eating a goddamn angiosperm. It's eating a flowering plant. So it would behoove you to know a little about what their structure is like and how they function. And, basically you could look at a flower, and it's not just the aesthetically pretty, whatever that means, it's just nice to look at. Who gives a shit about that? You can actually look at it biomechanically and know what the fuck is going on, how this thing is attempting to make more of itself, and, how they came to dominate the landscape. Okay, so I got a couple books I want you to read here, and it's not going to hurt. You got Zomleffer's book. I don't know how you pronounce it. Zomleffer? Whatever. This is a great book. She's down in Georgia. And I don't know her, but I emailed her once. And this you could get used online for like 20, 25 bucks. The new copies are like 60, which no book should cost 60 bucks. I'm sure it's not her fault. It's just that fucking, evidently it's probably not in high demand. And so, yeah, all textbooks are a scam. It's like education in this country in general is a scam. It's been fucking, they got to make money off anyway. But, Simpson's book, Plant Systematics, that's another, he's got 3 editions of this. He just put it out, a 3rd edition. I got all 3. They're great. And it's heavy, you throw it at someone, it's going to hurt. But most importantly, this guy covers all the bases from morphology. Don't be intimidated by it. From morphology to molecular, phylogenetics, all that shit. He's got the nice cladograms. We'll talk about this in a minute. Very important. And then, of course, plant identification terminology. Little less charming. It's just a straight-up dictionary of words as they pertain to inflorescences, i.e. compound flowers and different structures, etc. But all these are good, And if you're broke, you should support the author. But if you're broke, you get them on LibGen, too. Okay? Read them on your phone. Botany in a Day. This is all right. If you don't know shit about shit, this is a good thing to start with. But you really should just, it expresses the idea of how you identify plants by their flowers, not by their goddamn leaves, but primarily by their flowers and their reproductive structures. That's the idea that got Newton in trouble. You're looking at the sexy parts, because the Puritans back then, they didn't like it. They didn't like, the idea you look at a plant's dong to figure out what family it's in or what it's related to. But, the evolutionary interrelatedness of different species is conveyed much more so by the reproductive structures than by the goddamn leaves. Okay? So flowers and fruits. You want to look at flowers and fruits, not goddamn leaves. Sometimes you look at leaves and they can help diagnose, but mostly it's the flowers, at least if you're trying to figure out what family or genus. So a big word I want you to remember this, I'm going to beat you over the head with it a couple times, is the idea of synapomorphies, okay? Synapomorphies and monophyletic groups. Monophyletic, okay? Okay, synapomorphy is a shared trait, and it can be molecular, i.e. in the DNA barcode. You hold two different DNA barcodes from 2 different organisms next to each other, and if they overlap a lot, they're a lot more similar than if they don't overlap that much at all. That's why human beings, as sociopathic and insane and seemingly bent on our own destruction as we are closely related to chimps. And, you see chimps acting the same way, too. Oftentimes chimps are acting a lot more civil than human beings, though. But they'll still rip your arms off and beat you over the head with them. Okay, so synapomorphies can be molecular, DNA barcodes, or they can be morphological too, okay? And remember, synapomorphies are basically just trademarks, shared trademarks due to descending from both plants descending from a common ancestor, okay? And they're really important for, if you're looking at families and stuff like that. A good example would be, all orchids having pollinia, okay? Pollen aggregated into 2 little nodules. Or all members of the carrot family producing an inflorescence that's an umbel, okay? Or all sunflowers producing a capitulum, which is the typical characteristic of the flowers of the sunflower family, okay? Now, but you got to be careful, because sometimes what look like, the same thing, the same structure on 2 plants turns out to be, it turns out to not be the case. The 2 plants aren't related at all. They just both produced those structures or those flower types due to convergent evolution, okay? Instead of being homologous traits, which is due to shared ancestry, they just both produce those traits due to responding to similar environmental pressures. A good example is cacti and euphorbia, the euphorbia with spines, okay? They almost look alike, if you don't know the 2 plants that well, then you get up close, you realize they're not. They have completely different flowers. Euphorbs produce stipular spines, cacti spines are modified leaves, etc. And again, it's just convergent evolution. So going back to synapomorphies, this is a good book if you're just getting into it to explain to you what the synapomorphies in certain plant families are. And all plant families will have similar flowers based on those synapomorphies. But he doesn't call them, in his book, he don't call them synapomorphies. He just calls them patterns. See? Patterns of the cashew or sumac family, but he's really running home the idea. That's why I recommend this, okay? And you can buy this book. I don't know how much the guy sells it for, or you can, I think they got it on LibGen too, if you're a little bit low on it, don't you just want to get it for free. So anyway, but that's a good book to basically, run home the idea. Look at it. Look, it's got patterns of the mallow family right there. See that? Okay, 5 patterns of 5. And, the whole bunch of stamens fused to a central column that surrounds the female part, the pistillate part, right there. Okay, this is good for that. Okay, good introduction if you want to move on beyond this, go to Plant Systematics or that other Zomlifer book. Anyway, so the point I want to talk about here, monophyletic and synapomorphies, okay? Synapomorphies are just shared traits due to sharing a common ancestor, you know? Okay, so if people think about it like I got a big schnoz because my dad, who looks like kind of a short, fatter Joe Pesci, has a big schnoz. So we both have big schnozzes because the gene for big schnozzes is the same gene. You know, we both come from the same background, you know? But he's a little bit crazier than I am. But anyway, you catch the drift. So, you know, flowers that have shared synapomorphies often form monophyletic groups. And you got all these other words, paraphyletic, they're not fucking closely related. You know, they're closely related to the, well, it gets really common. You got polyphyletic, which means you're way off the mark if you're grouping organisms together. And you got paraphyletic, which means all those organisms might share a common ancestor, but you're leaving one out. Okay? And of course, this is the cladogram. Okay? Cladograms are important. Someone just did a cladogram of the recent evolution of the coronavirus. And, you know, when you look at a cladogram, it really, the point is to lay out evolutionary relationships for you. Okay? And that's a fucking wonderful thing to think about too, because if you find one plant in one place that's in the same genus or family as a plant that's 6,000 miles away, you got to think, you know, and is known to be native there, it wasn't brought by people, then you got to think how'd they fan out like that, you know? How far back did they go? How far back were they occupying the same region, the same land? And that field of study is called biogeography, but that's fucking fascinating. But it's a whole different can of worms right there. We're just focusing on flower morphology. So shared synapomorphies are what put flowers together in the same group. For instance, if I see a plant like this, and I don't know what it is, but I see that flower structure, which is 5 petals, you know, not united, not fused together, distinct petals with a goddamn, this thing is, you know, basically a column with a bunch of different stamens on it, and at the top you got the stigma, which is the female part, the pistillate part. I know that's going to be a mallow. You take me to goddamn Thailand and you show me something in the mallow family that I never seen before. I never seen that plant. I'll look at the flower and I'll know it's a goddamn mallow. And that's what I want you to be able to do when I'm done running my mouth and talking all this shit. You'll be able to get a little bit closer of an idea. Okay, so here we go. Starting off with the evolution of flowering plants. This is from Mike Simpson's book, Plant Systematics. Really, I bet you could get used copies of this for fucking $10 online. First or second edition, you know. Take it with a grain of salt since it's not up to date, but the base ideas are going to be good. They're going to be legit. Okay, so cladogram, right? You got the magnolia, some of the, what you call a, quote, basal angiosperms. That is the earlier branching angiosperms. Then you got the monocots, and then you got the eudicots, which is basically, you know, anything that's not a monocotyledon. Monocots is just a word for one cotyledon. Agaves, palm trees, corn, lilies, they're all monocots. Okay? And then the eudicots are basically the, quote, and I say that in quotes, higher flowering plants, the more recently evolved flowering plants, okay, that came later. All right? And I said, remember, these black lines, these black bars, indicate synapomorphies, okay? They indicate shared traits that evolve once, and then everything that comes after that, that evolves after that, shares that trait. So pollen trichopate, that means the pollen's got, looks like 3 ridges on it. If you look at a pollen grain of any of these plants under a fucking electron microscope, you're gonna see the trichopate thing. They're doing a trichopate. They got 3 ridges. Cotyledons again are these fucking, here's a silphium seedling I germinated. 2 different cotyledons, and here's the first leaf. The first leaf looks like something not on it. Goddamn fucking slugs. Okay, and here's an agave. When this thing germinated, it was just one single, looked like a blade of grass. Monocot, eudicot. All right. So anyway, all right. So these are all orders. Ceratophyllales, ranunculales, proteales, caryophyllales. That's the spinach, cacti, and beets. Santalales. That's the mistletoes. Saxifragales, rosids, asterids, etc. So you got the orders right there, and to figure out what order a goddamn plant is, once you figure this trick out, this will help you immensely, because you get the Wikipedia app. Look, I'm looking at damn kudzu, all right, Bane of the South, all right. Okay, it's already mentions in the damn Wikipedia page. Fabaceae is the family, okay, but you go down here to these quick facts, and you click on it, and then you get a goddamn taxo chart, okay, showing everything from kingdom on down.
I found these results.
What the fuck is that? I don't know what the hell. What is it? Get out of here. I don't know what she's talking. I don't know. Anyway. So family Fabaceae, order Fabales. Okay, it's Interrosids. And subfamily Faboidea. You can tell that just by looking at those the flower heads. They look, Faboidea, the pea family's got a bunch of different subfamilies based on how the flowers look. Okay, if it's like a mimosa or one of the sennas or they just revised it, but there used to just be 3 of them. Now there's like 6, but there used to just be 3. So subfamily Faboideae, that's everything that looks like a typical pea flower. Banner, wings, and keel, okay? The petals. Anyway, so get that out of the way. But moving right along, let's get to the actual morphology itself. Okay, all right, here we go. Getting to the meat, all right? Getting to the meat. Okay, so you got monocots and eudicots, remember, all right? Plus the basal angiosperms, there's a whole nother can of worms. Don't worry about it. Just focus on monocots and dicots, okay? Knowing that dicots, there's more to that than just them having 2 cotyledons, okay? Because anyway, the fucking point is, monocots got these parts normally in multiples of 3, and eudicots normally got them in multiples of 5, or sometimes 4, or any of that, okay? So you can look at a plant like a lily, for instance. You see 6 tepals. Tepals, since they're indistinct. There's no clear distinction between petals and tepals, or petals and sepals. So you got tepals. Well, sometimes some lilies do, actually. Everything, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Everything is fluid. There's nothing solid, no concrete. So leave yourself some mental flexibility. You take a lily, it's got 6 of those goddamn petals or sepals or tepals, whatever the fuck you want to call them. Agaves, for instance, have 6. They only got tepals. Agaves only got tepals. All right? No clear distinction. They got 6 tepals, agave flowers. Okay? So you look at those, that's a monocot. Multiple of 3, it's 6. You know it's a monocot. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, but overall, that's it. Monocots, multiples of 3, eudicots, multiples of 4 or 5. Okay? Now, here we got your generic-ass flower structure. Even wrote it out for you. Okay? So, even spelled it out for you in case, you're pretty thick-skulled, you can't pick it up. All right? Generic-ass flower structure. Now, the basic thing you want to get, this is looking down at a flower that's pointing up. Okay? There's going to be variations on this. You go to the sunflower family, that's a whole other can of worms. You're going to have to, I did a video on one like 6 or 7 months ago. All right? It's somewhat, you'll be able to decipher it somewhat, okay? I'm ranting. I was on a lot of coffee, okay? Out there standing in a field full of sunflowers, but it does help you understand a little bit what's going on with the sunflower family, right? But that's a whole different can of worms from this. We're just talking about generic-ass flower structure, generic flowers, okay? So the basic idea you want to get is basically you got looking down. These will be the petals, and then subtending that beneath that, closer to the ground, closer to the main axis of the plant, you would have the sepals. Now the petals and sepals together, when you got them both together, they compose what's called the perianth. I should have written that down, okay? Because some of you jackasses will forget it. Perianth, just remember that. Petals and sepals together are perianth. Okay? Sepals are also synonymous with calyx. Anytime you hear someone say, the calyx on that motherfucker was beautiful, okay? They're referring to the sepals, okay? And if they're talking about the corolla, oh, that was a nice corolla. He's talking about the petals, okay? Remember that. Petals, corolla, sepals, calyx, okay? And here you got stamens, which are the male parts, and a pistil, which it's counterintuitive. Pistil, you normally think dang, but in this case, pistil refers to the female parts, which you would call the megaspores, okay, of the plant. Okay, stamens would be I'm gonna fuck. You know what? I'm gonna fuck you all up. This is conifers. If you're thinking about conifers, the male parts are normally microstrobili, female is megastrobili, micro for male, mega for females. But don't worry about that. Anyway, the point is, stamens are always more numerous than the pistil, okay? Now, the stamen is composed of quite a few parts. What you normally see are the anthers. The anthers hold the pollen. We'll get into that later. Pistil, of course, is always generally in the center. So as long as you grasp the base concept that the stamens are generally more numerous and encircle the female part, the pistil, you'll be all right. You could look at a general, a flower. Go look at like a damn lily, okay, in a store, and you'll see those fucking dangly things. There's 6 of them, just laden with pollen, stamens. Thing in the center that's receiving pollen, it's the pistil. Okay, so there we go. Now, not a stamen and pistil. So even wrote it out for you too, so you could get it, all right? So even you could understand it. Generic-ass stamen, okay? And again, there's going to be variations to this. So you look at some plants, they don't even have a damn filament. Some species don't even have a filament. The stamens are just, the goddamn anthers are just almost sessile, you know, on the damn, you know, and sometimes these will both be fused together. Look at the damn mallow family. You got a bunch of different fucking, you know, dozens of anthers on a central column, and then inside that central column, you have the pistil. Very confusing, but if, you know, once you get the general concept, you could look at it and figure it out. You could look at any flower and figure it out. That's where the biomechanical part comes in. They're just fucking fascinating. Okay, so stamen is composed of pollen grains, and then the anther, which is normally looks like two hot dog buns. Those are called theca. Those different, basically these different lobes, you know, and then sometimes pollen's blue. Most of the time it's yellow. So a lot of times it could be white too. All right, and then the filament is just the stock that holds it up. But remember, sometimes the filament's not even there. Okay, go to some of the basal angiosperms. They got what are called laminar stamens. Okay, some of the earlier diverging angiosperms, they got laminar stamens. They look like yerba mansa. Okay, the Anamopsis. Good example. Okay, and then over here you got your generic ass pistil. This would be. This is more like a cacti pistil because it's got a rather large stigma, which is like the plant cervix. It receives the pollen, receives the male gametophyte. That'll fuck your world up too. Don't worry. It's just if you want to look it up later. That's why I'm saying those words, not to intimidate you. Just if you want to look it up later, it would receive the male gametophyte, the pollen, and then you know, of course, the pollen tube germinates on a stigma, sends a little pollen, or the pollen grain germinates on the stigma, sends a little pollen tube down there. Pollinates the ovary. These would be carpels, these different lobes, okay? The ovary could be composed of many carpels fused together, okay? But anyway, the ovary is the fruit. Anytime you eat a fruit, you're eating an ovary, okay? Ovary is just the, you know, the mature, well, not mature, but when the fruit is just a mature ovary, basically, okay? So you're looking at stigma, style. Again, style is just that long extended part. Sometimes there's no style. Oftentimes it's rather long. You look at like a damn mint flower. The styles doesn't look like this at all. It's just a single, looks like a hair, okay? But on the end of that, there is a stigma, and at the base of that, there is an ovary, okay? And the ovary, of course, contains ovules, aka seeds, okay? So you got an ovary, fruit, ovules, seeds. And again, generic ass pistil, all right? Counterintuitive because you normally think pistil, it's a dang, it's a male part, but it's not. It's the female part. Okay, so now we're going to talk about flower sex. Okay, so first off, you got perfect flowers, which is what most angiosperms are. They're like these guys over here. They got male and female parts on the same plant. You get your stamens, your pistil there. Okay, stamens male, pistil female, obviously. All right. Then you got imperfect flowers. And that's where monoecious and dioecious come into play, okay? Monoecious plants have imperfect flowers. That is, flowers either staminate or pistillate, either male or female, but they occur on the same plant, okay? Oak tree is a good example of that. Then lastly, you got dioecious flowers. You know, cannabis, good example of that. You know, staminate the imperfect flowers, but the plant themselves are either staminate, you know, or female, or pistillate. Okay, so you'll have a plant that's got entirely female flowers on it, or a plant that's got entirely male flowers on it. Sometimes you get mutants where you get hermaphrodites, but generally, you know, 90-95% of the time this is the case. All right, and so you'll notice if you see a flower that's only got these little bug antenna things on it, but it's missing the central ovary and whatnot, you'll know that that's a staminate the plant. It's a male. All right, something's going on here. It's not a perfect flower. Okay, because normally you should see both parts in the same. Okay, because like I said, most angiosperms, most flowering plants have perfect flowers. Whereas if you see just one of these but no stamens around it, none of little bug antennas, you're gonna know, okay, this is just a female flower. Something fishy's going on. Now, all flowers are, again, is just a way for plants to go about genetic recombination. Why do they want to go about genetic recombination? Well, genetic recombination is how plants speciate. It's how mutations arise. It's how human beings cultivate plants. They select for plants. Okay, I don't care if it's, you know, the goddamn corn you're eating, or whether it's the cannabis you're smoking, whatever. All that was selectively bred by human beings via recombination, via genetic recombination, plant breeding. Okay, so you know this comes into play. You don't got to learn about this now, but the issue of meiosis comes into play when cells split and the daughter cell only has half the chromosomes, which is what a pollen grain is. Okay. A pollen grain is haploid, where the entire rest of the plant is diploid. Okay, the ovules inside the ovary are haploid, whereas the rest of the plant is is diploid. It's got two, or sometimes polyploid. Plants can be polyploid, but don't worry about it. Just pretend they're all diploid for now. It makes it easier. Because humans are diploid, right? You got two copies, all right? And that's all that's going on. He's just trying to genetically recombine. So a pollen grain would be equivalent to like a human sperm cell, and an ovule would be equivalent to, well, a human egg cell, okay? So that's there you go. Perfect, aka synoecious, but nobody uses that term, versus monoecious versus dioecious. Okay, one more concept we got to nail down real quick. Actinomorphic, zygomorphic. Actinomorphic is just a fancy word for radial symmetry, radially symmetrical, like a circle. Okay, looking at a flower face on. Looking at a flower face on, if it's bilaterally symmetrical, like a heart, it's zygomorphic, okay? Now, with any of these, it's just understand the concepts and the ideas behind the words. Don't just memorize the words, okay? Not just like they tell you to do in high school, just mindless, passionless, memorization of bullshit that you'll forget 2 or 3 years down the line. Understand the ideas so that you can actually use them and fucking apply them when you're out looking at a flower in a dirt lot somewhere, or wherever the fuck you end up. Okay, zygomorphic can be a trait. It can be a synapomorphic trait for a lot of members in a mint order, mint family and mint order, Lamiales. Okay, you'll see this a lot. Okay, in families Plantagenaceae, for instance, or this, like I said, the Salvia family, Lamiaceae. Okay, remember, order's above family, so order's a larger group than family. But anyway, you get the point. Okay, almost all the flowers in a Lamiaceae, the mint family, are zygomorphic. Okay, whereas like if you look at a tulip or a lily or something head on, it's radially symmetrical. So that's just an important concept to grasp, and it obviously helps you describe something. If you see it, you could say, oh, it's a zygomorphic flower. Then you could say, what families have zygomorphic flowers? Oh, this is probably in this family, or good chance it's related to this, whatever. Actinomorphic, etc. So just get the concept, don't just memorize the word. See, this is why I love Simpson's book, okay, Plant Systematics, because he's got all these. Look, he's got the goddamn. You can see you get nice illustrations up close, nice full frontal nudity of these goddamn flowers. Ejaculators, holy shit, Jesus Christ. It's I don't even know. Acanthaceae. This is one of zygomorphic. Lamiales, acanthaceae. I'm not even familiar with the ejaculators. I don't see too many acanthaceae out here. Guess I got to read up on that now. I don't know anything about that. But anyway, look at it. Everything's labeled nice. Okay, really breaks it down for you. He's got one of these for, every family that he features in there. Okay, but anyway, the thing I want to show you, you can go down a wormhole with this. Chapter 9 in that book has, gets into the flower morphology, got nice diagrams, easy to read, okay? And, but again, none of this shit is going to matter to you until you go out and apply it. You look at something, you try to figure out what the fuck is going on here. I say that all the time. I still say that when I look at flowers sometimes. Middle of fucking desert, I'm crouched on the ground looking at a flower. What the fuck is going on here? I don't know. If it's a new plant. Did that a lot in Chile. I did a whole lot of that. What the fuck is going on here in New Caledonia? Just trying to figure out what the shit is going on with this flower. Anyway, so this is the whole thing about inflorescences. Okay, this part. And inflorescence is just basically a compound flower. Okay, because flowers, you always look. It's not like tulips. There's just one single flower on a tulip. Okay, many times the predominant form for most flowers or most reproductive structures on angiosperm flowering plants is an inflorescence. It's a bunch of flowers aggregated together in a compound structure. Okay, I don't care how it is. They're all stuck together. Okay, you get everything from an umbel, like milkweeds have an umbel. Okay, you go to the carrot family, Apiaceae, they got compound umbels. So this would be an umbel, and then at the end of one of these, instead of being a flower, be another umbel. Okay, fuck your mind up good, real nice. Okay, scorpioid cymes, got all the different, all this stuff. I still struggle with this. It could be hard to memorize. You just gotta, the more you see it and you look at a compound flower, a plant's sexual reproductive organs, you figure what the fuck. You just ask questions and what would you call that? So you gotta know how a spike differs from a raceme and how a raceme differs from a panicle. Right? The difference being a raceme, all those flowers are on little independent stalks, independent little pedicels. A spike, they're just sessile. Okay, like some of those Midwest orchids. I can't think of the goddamn genus now. Anyway, or a panicle is like basically a compound raceme. Okay, verticillaster. That's another trademark you often see in the Lamiaceae. All right, so it's just It's just going down a wormhole, just trying to figure out what you would call it. And then there's these are pretty interesting. Specialized inflorescences, cyathium, euphorbias, poinsettias, etc. All got a cyathium, okay, which is a really weird. This is not one single flower. These independent little guys are the male flowers that surround. You'd think they were just stamens, but they're not. They're actual independent flowers surrounding the female, the massive ovary right there, okay? Spadix, you got those with the aeroids, like the monsteras and shit, the fucking plants you always see people trying to kill in their homes. You see them in malls. Get a lot of aeroids in malls because they're adapted to the understory. A lot of them are adapted to the understory of the jungle. So they can get, they can tolerate the heat, the low light conditions, the intermittent lack of water, etc. Catkin, you get those on oaks, okay? What the fuck else we got? Spikeless, that's the grasses. Asteraceae sunflower family, capitulum. Oh god, this family will intimidate the shit out of you. But the sunflower family's fucking fascinating though. Once you learn about it, you're just working. It's just a new concept to learn because it's so specific to that family. Okay, basically a bunch of upwards of sometimes 500, 600 flowers aggregated into one compound head. Called the pseudanthium. It's supposed to look like a flower, but it's actually composed of a bunch of tiny flowers. It's supposed to look like a single flower, but anyway. So you get the, I guess I could wrap this up right now. Are you still watching it, Steven? I don't know how you're doing that. Figured I would have put you to sleep already. Anyway, you get the point, okay? You got flowers. They got the general morphology, general structure, but then there's a whole bunch of different variations on it, being that evolution's had 125 million fucking years to work it out, diversify. And you just take that and run with it. There's a lot of shit you can get just by crouching down every once in a while and looking at what's growing out of the fucking the crack in the concrete. I don't care if you're in Brooklyn and the sidewalk's covered in piss. Actually, that's more like San Francisco, probably. Human shit. Some bummy actually just took a dump outside my front door right now here in Oakland. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do about that. Maybe I'll clean it up at some point, but right now I just don't got it in me. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. If you feel like donating a couple bucks or something, you could do it. If you don't want to, that's fine too. You don't got to do that. Don't you love phraseras? Holy shit. You don't got to do that. I'm not asking, just if you feel like it. If you feel comfortable doing it, you could do that. I'm not begging you. I don't give a fuck. It's just, if you feel like it, do it. Okay, I could certainly use the burrito. All right. I am also, maybe I'll sell stickers at some point again. You get some crime paste stickers or something. You can go to the bonfire store, buy some merch, But mostly just take a look at some of these books and, get a hand lens too. An ex got me this, before she got real mad at me. She got me one of these hand lenses and then I use it all the time now. We're good now. I really appreciate it, but she was mad at me for a while. Anyway, so take one of these out, It's everything. It's great. Not even just looking at plants, looking at anything up close. You can really freak yourself out, especially some of those stoners who smoke a lot of weed. Once you get one of these, you'll blow your mind. You can see the independent pixels and whatnot. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. You got any questions, you can email me. And, just fucking, teach yourself something, right? Don't spend a whole goddamn pandemic just beating off watching Netflix or playing video games or anything. All that's fine, but just make sure you're, going through some mental exercise too, okay? Because otherwise you'll atrophy. Your mind will atrophy. Learn something new, okay? All right, that's all I got. Go fuck yourself. Bye.